Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow or subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or whatever your streaming platform is. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a comment. We would really appreciate it. My name is Shiro, and today I'm really excited to be talking about how crazy it is to do the same thing and expect different results. In particular, we'll be talking about creating student experiences. And for that, I'm really excited to have our guest join us today. You may know him from the Higher Ed Geek podcast. He's also the community engagement lead at Pathify as well. Please welcome Dustin Ramsdell.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Always good to be in community and chatting with a fellow podcaster. So I appreciate the chance to do that.
It's great to have you. And I do ask all my guests this icebreaker. Dustin, what do you love about higher ed?
Yeah, it's a great question because I mean there is so much to love. I think for me, as I gaze upon my University of Delaware mascot bobblehead that I have on my desk, it's the ability to have like this lifelong kind of affinity and affection and love for the institution that gave me so much. So like that I can keep that connection really active and fulfilling long after graduating. So I think just that ability to have such a like deep and personal impact, even though there's all these other impacts that it has obviously in sort of, you know, the workforce and just society and all these sort of like really macro things, you know, it really does sometimes just come down to kind of the individual. How did they feel? Did they feel supported? Did they, you know, have fun? Did they learn things? All that kind of stuff. So that's what I'll go with.
I find that fascinating. And I know you're very involved with higher ed because you have your own podcast, right? With the Higher Ed Geek podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How long have you kept the show running there?
Yeah. I mean, I've been podcasting generally for a very long time. The very first show I ever did started in March of 2014, and Higher Ed Geek launched in November 2017. So we just passed our 5-year anniversary, which is quite the milestone. Very, very grateful for that. And yeah, it's been a fun ride because I think I just love the medium and just as a sort of a vehicle to have these really fulfilling and kind of fruitful conversations for myself, and knowing that, you know, I almost don't want to like hog them to myself. You know, it's like, it's just something that I want to be able to share and give back to the field. And yeah, so really have enjoyed doing it over the past over 5 years.
That's fantastic. And for the listeners who don't know about your podcast, can you tell us a little bit more about like the format, structure, what kind of people and guests you have on the show?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, you know, similar to this, just kind of classic interview style. Just typically one person. Sometimes I'll have multiple, but I, you know, exclusively kind of focus on higher ed. And there's sometimes maybe tangential, you know, things that are sort of impacting on maybe a policy level or things like that. But really kind of keep the focus in on higher ed, talk with presidents of institutions, folks who work in ed tech, in leadership positions and everything. But really just trying to have kind of lighthearted, engaging conversations that are kind of just driving forward the field, you know, the kind of topics of the day and the issues and best practices and all that. So, you know, on one hand, it is a pretty kind of open mandate of, you know, what we're talking about. But nowadays I'm finding like a lot of, you know, ed tech folks want to be on, and, you know, a lot of folks want to hear from them. So that's been a lot of focus lately, is just kind of exploring, obviously, the increasingly, you know, digitizing nature of our work. And I know I had your CEO on a short while back, which was a treat. So yeah, it's definitely a great sort of effort on my part, like that I, you know, what I get from it kind of part of it, but then just knowing that, yeah, so many other people enjoy it is just very, it matters a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you. I listened to that episode with Concept 3D's CEO, Gordon Boys. It's a great one. So thanks for having us on your show as well. That's great. And I just checked Spotify. It looks like you're almost at 200 episodes. You're at 192 at least posted. So that's a lot of episodes. Congratulations on keeping it going. I know how much work it is to keep any podcast going, but let alone over 100 and to that 200 benchmark. That's fantastic. Nice work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, great. I know we had a quick intro call and a coffee meeting before this the other week, and we talked about some topics. And one thing that you're seeing as you talk to all these guests with your podcast and as you're involved with higher ed, I know you mentioned there's just a big lack of awareness in higher ed right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, thinking about student experiences and, prospective student experiences, there's just a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of noise in terms of if you're just trying to search for information, or even if you've kind of zeroed in on an institution, they're going to have a website just chock full of information buried in submenus and this, that, the other thing. It's just hard to navigate. So I think it really is that we kind of have this like embarrassment of riches where, a student just saying like, what's a online business program or something, like they're just probably going to be overwhelmed. And how do you try to either distinguish yourself in maybe those classic mediums, or try to kind of distill what you're trying to communicate so it's more clear and easier to kind of break through? I just think, it's, there's been so much investment in what institutions are trying to build around like support resources or their program offerings and all that. So like half the battle now is just in the kind of the delivery, of what they've built, what they offer, who they are. So I think that's kind of an interesting kind of conundrum where I think sometimes there's been so much emphasis on maybe the marketing and the outreach and all that, and it still, needs to continue to have its, kind of due emphasis. But I'm sort of observing now that I feel like half the battle is going to be the sort of the modality and delivery of of content information, especially to prospective students as they're making their decisions.
Is this a conversation around quantity over quality as well? Is it related to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a sense, because I believe that there's this perspective of like, you kind of just do the fire hose approach, or sort of deluge, students with just like all the information that any possible student would ever need to know, versus trying to contour that information as much as you can. And that can be certainly challenging. You want to try to, through various means, get some information, get some insights into who this person is and what they're looking for. But as you get that information, I think you have to actually sort of start to utilize it and build out content that can kind of, content, or just sort of like, platforms, or just sort of environments that are going to help to kind of, again, do that sort of distillation so they can focus and know, what do I need to know as the person I am for what I'm looking for at this particular institution, at this time. So yeah, I mean, you kind of want to consider that you don't want to just sort of overwhelm a prospective student who's maybe interested in your institution in particular. You then overwhelm them when they've already made one choice, at least, with like too much information.
Gotcha. And so what's the fix? I know we talked a little bit around personalization, around the prospective student. Is that where you're leaning towards right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the big thing for me is we have the tools and the ability now to create really meaningful, personalized prospective student experiences, and doing that with, the digital first mindset is kind of the big thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which like has implications across the entire institution. But focusing in on the prospective student experience, you've got all the information and all the noise, and just envisioning the sort of like, kind of freeing nature, the sort of like optimization of, differentiating the students' kind of information gathering about an institution, if they're a residential student versus a commuter, an art student versus a business student, and starting to kind of stack all of those things. And if they can kind of have a gateway to enter in, explore what this institution is all about, what it offers, how are you going to meet other people, and just navigate everything. But it gets rid of all the stuff that you're not going to need to know about. And you can kind of, even then, kind of just like, parse out from that what you want to see and how you want to see it, to start to be more reassured, be more sort of knowledgeable about all of the great things that this institution has invested in for you, so that you kind of feel more confident in the decision that you're making, and all the things that you'll need to do to, get onboarded and oriented and all those kind of things.
And you mentioned digital first mindset earlier. Does that just mean the delivery of all this information is like through email? Like, what does that mean specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would be the predominant modality is, texting, email, having as much as you can sort of, virtual calls and various things, and even like utilizing tools like chat bots or, and that ability to have kind of a 24/7 live chat option and things like that. But the guiding philosophy that can, again, permeate all different kind of facets of the institution is that like you build with that digital first mindset, all those things, digital tools that help an online student, a hybrid student, but really help all of your students, because you just think of increasingly working adult learners that are, looking for options to kind of upskill or reskill and all that. Like you want to be well prepared to support any student in any way and any time with whatever they need. And I think those are, having that digital first mindset is a really effective way to do that. Because again, they're just so dynamic, they're so flexible, and it doesn't rely on either students having to make decisions in a vacuum because they can't come to campus, or they can't, get in hold of somebody during business hours, or you're overwhelming some poor advisor or something, like just over email. That's the only way you can ever get an answer to any question. It's just sort of bottlenecking through to one place. There's just like a lot of options to get questions answered.
Gotcha. And if you focus on personalizing these experiences for students, whether you're residential or commuter, or you're an art student or a business student, like how does that reflect on the business? Like what is the goal that you're getting closer to as an institution when you focus on, these more granular aspects of outreach and information delivery?
Yeah. I mean, frankly, it's just like, minimizing melt and optimizing the number of students you retain. And I think that there's kind of a clear line between those, is that like, if you just, there's a whole other conversation of just like, who are the students that you're recruiting, but like, regardless, it's like, whatever that pool of students is, the better informed, prepared they are, the more likely that they're going to feel like, cool, I've got this, I understand, I'm not getting tripped up or missing something, or kind of starting on the wrong foot in my first semester. And then from there, you have so much more of a stronger foundation as time goes on. You're going into your second, third year, fourth year, versus not even knowing something existed until your senior year and you were like drowning, so the ability to, again, personalize, help the information be presented in a much more user-friendly way on a mobile app, a website is the exact same thing. And all that, it's just, again, institutions have invested so much in their orientation of students and creating all the mental health support, student engagement clubs, and all these different opportunities and career services and all that. And it's a tragedy that I think we see time and time again, that students just lack a lot of awareness of what these supports are, how to, take advantage of them. And it just leaves a lot of sort of room for growth for, again, that delivery, the modality that we're presenting these things, and how can students get a hold of these various offices. And, wishing that you can just remove as much friction as possible, because like any of these things couldn't be, they wouldn't have to be where it's like, okay, the student's having a mental health crisis and they're having to drop out, and so they're not retaining. It'd just be like, can't we just make it easier for them and try to remove friction? Just have them be having these outlets to kind of process and grow and develop and everything. Like we owe it to ourselves as institutions, for all these resources that we have, and we owe it to our students to make sure that they just have like the most satisfying, sort of experience at our institutions as possible. So it's not even just sort of like trying to kind of like, identify those most at risk students, which that is important. It's that, and trying to just make sure if somebody's having a hard time, they can get the help that they need when they need it. And, that goes from a prospective student trying to kind of check all the boxes and all the things to, a student preparing for graduation. There's always just a lot to kind of manage and to know, and, wanting to maybe like check over your shoulder, or, engage with peers, or engage with other, Dustin, support staff.
Do you remember what your orientation was like as well? Like, I know we just talked about your alma mater, but I was just trying, as you're explaining all this, I was just trying to think of mine. It's been...
Now, I will say something. So this kind of puts an interesting wrinkle into everything. So I did a unique program in Delaware where you can take essentially satellite classes for the University of Delaware in
Nice, cool.
one of the community college campuses. So I was
Oh,
studying
cool.
more local to me and was essentially just commuting into the community college. So then I think I was kind of like considered a transfer, kind of, where like I wasn't at the main campus first year student in one of
Mm-hmm.
the residence halls. So like I never really got an orientation experience. And I think that is another sort of oversight and another sort of like persona type that you could be having is like, how would we give a similar engaging supportive experience for a transfer student who's coming in where it's like, well, they've been to college before, they know some stuff, but they don't know how things work here and all of that. So you'd want to be mindful of being able to tag this person as a transfer student and provide to them an orientation of some sort and other sort of like, groups or things that would be able to help them to get their bearings and all of that. Because I think it's something like, I wouldn't even like single out my alma mater of like struggling with this. A lot of institutions struggle with it. And
Right,
I
right.
think it's just something to think about of like that you could be, again, investing in some digital first infrastructure and that you'd be completely having a blind spot of like transfer students who increasingly are like a population that, especially a lot of like public 4-year state institutions are trying to kind of pull in students from the local community colleges and everything. It's like, well, you need to make
Right.
sure that you're treating them similar but different, as you would a fresh first year student who has never studied at any other place. You'd want to try to welcome them in as warmly, welcome in transfer students as warmly as you would,
Mm-hmm.
these new year students, new students who are getting much more of the emphasis, I think, traditionally. So that was kind of my experience, is that there like really wasn't one. And that's like, as I'm talking out here, I'm like, yeah, we have to be mindful of that as well as we try to, build up our classes each year and trying to have, healthy student populations and again, have those students be supported and retained.
That's very interesting. I went to a big university as well, big public university, CU Boulder, and I don't think there is any personalization that I can at least remember today, other than like, hey, here are the welcome day events. Here's like the concert we're doing on Friday night. Um, yeah, I really can't remember anything in particular that was like personalized. So, I mean, huge opportunity, like, cell phones, like not everyone had a smartphone then. So, I think some of the digital first capabilities of today didn't even exist, but that would have been nice for sure. Speaking of creating these personalized experiences, is there a certain school size or school type, like private, large institution, regional, like that creating these experiences will have like the biggest benefit for the school? The reason I ask that is like, if you're an Ivy League school and you're like, hey, we have no enrollment issues, right? Like our school's not struggling at all. Like we don't care. Like what do you say to that versus like a regional school, which might have enrollment or admissions decline?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point, is that like, it's just something that's overlooked by the schools that, don't have to struggle or kind of hustle, with each of their incoming classes and stuff, which again, on principle, I think that they should be caring about the student experience and giving them as, supportive experience as they possibly can. But there's not like that sense of urgency. And I think what I've observed over like the past year that have been at Pathify is that like, it's interesting that, there's a lot of religious institutions, which I really did not expect, that like really have such a deep commitment to really kind of building this, inclusive community for the whole, institution that they have. And even just making sure that if they have, services that they do, that they, are making sure people are aware of those and can be a part of them. And certainly community colleges, it's in the name, like they want to be very accessible, very approachable, very supportive of their students. So we've seen it be very impactful for them. And then otherwise, I think it is just like, you could have your small liberal arts who's, tuition driven and, living and dying by, each student that they bring in, that they'd want to, as much as they can, I think, spare no expense, in making sure that they've got as many guardrails up as they can to, not let people just sort of, fall off and they're kind of just, there wasn't much that they really could have done or something. But so I think that those are two interesting observations, and I think we'll see, just this more of that, and other like affinity-based institutions like HBCUs. They obviously have their own kind of deep commitment and tradition and history and community, that they'd want to try to, just create, a really supportive network.
Do you think in the future, I'm just trying to think future, like, do you think we'll have like a Netflix of student enrollment where like all your favorite shows are recommended to you now, like, is that the future state of where higher ed will go, especially for prospective and transfer students?
Because I think that is always, and I maybe it's fallen out of fashion a little bit, but everyone's saying like, oh, we're making the Netflix of blank. Like it was literally like everything in life, or like it's the Uber of this or whatever. And I think for
Right.
education, like the MOOCs, of the world, the Coursera's and edX and stuff is like the closest thing that we have currently to that, I feel like. And I do honestly think that we're going to keep getting closer to where there's going to be kind of consortium sort of efforts and networks where, and I always love seeing these is when like either like a, dense urban center like DC or New York, or a region like the greater sort of like Baltimore, DC area, like when they are able to kind of network and work together to support each other, where like, oh, we have a lot of this, you have none, we can help support you with like our program offerings or, different like, involvement opportunities. So I think we'll keep seeing more of that because like there's just people who are, whether they're on the ed tech side or those institutional leaders who I think are seeing the benefits as institutions are closing and merging to like almost have a little bit more foresight to not be like, hey, we are just like drowning financially as an institution. How can we try to just survive? You can maybe at least have the foresight of like, could we work with our neighbor institutions or similar institutions across the country to sort of like compensate where others are struggling, so then we all kind of collectively benefit? Because it's like,
right,
it's all just education. You see people like in education like show and tell so much and share with each other and support each other. So I think that's like kind of the next evolution. Like I don't think it's literally going to be like you log into a Netflix style interface and just pick and choose courses and you just make your degree and it's super seamless. Like that could be very far off, but like just even the notion that like institutions stop seeing each other so much as competitors and start seeing opportunities to sort of like create these sort of robust libraries of courses or involvement opportunities or just other things. Like, I mean, you're already seeing like the athletic conferences, like sort of kind of play around in this sort of space and other things. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's just like the merger sort of side of the equation. And if institutions are almost like getting ahead of that prior to when they like have to, or else they'll just, cease to exist.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think one of my past guests, I think it was, I'm blanking. It was a regional university, like more in the Midwest, and they have like a program with John Deere. Like they have like a specific course with John Deere where they can learn more like agricultural farming, like engineering. And they actually partnered directly with John Deere to like help create those courses, which I thought was fascinating. And they're super involved with their community as well. And so I kind of aligned to what you're saying right now, which I thought was pretty impressive. Because that would interest me if I went to school, if like I can have direct relations outside of just the campus and just the school. That'd be really unique.
Yeah, I mean, corporate partners can be a part of it as well, for sure. So, yeah. And I think, that's something that I hope to potentially talk about as like another teaser, I guess, as this, comes out, is at South by next year. That's like the proposal that I put in for the panel picker was like partnerships. Yeah, well, partnerships was a big part of his alliteration. Like partnerships, pathways, or peril. That was and the idea that it's like it's corporate partnerships and institutions sort of partnering with each other, and even like boot camps partnering with institutions, so that like a student does a 1 year technical boot camp and then can get preferred admission into getting associates or bachelors. Yeah,
because that's a heavy competition right now, right? Like we're big X's, like we're not on the same team right now there, so that would be interesting. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Dustin, it was great to have you on today. I was wondering where our listeners could connect with you and learn more about what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks can absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. Just search my name and should be one of the first ones to come up, because I feel like I don't know how many Dustin Ramsdells there are that are as active on LinkedIn. Or go to pathify.com. So it's just pathify.com. So that is, my day job. I work on creating content there, so you can find a lot of stuff that I've made there, like their podcast, Connected Campus, or just some blog posts and things. So look forward to hearing from folks.
Awesome. Thank you again, Dustin, for joining us. And hopefully it's not the last. And thanks for our audience for tuning in today. Make sure to check out the next episode. Thanks, everyone.